No, this is when we're really on the internet.
We just cut.
We're on right now.
Oh,
Do that every time. You always catch me off guard.
Hi, Dave.
that's me.
What's going on?
Came down to the Berliner tonight, downtown Renton.
4th and Main.
Ahead of the curve?
3rd and Main.
3rd and Main. No, it's 4th and Main.
It depends
No,
on
the
how...
Advent.
Yes. All right.
Let's
Oh.
not.
Yeah,
We're not going to argue where we are on the blocks in Renton. Let's not do that. Anyway,
Yeah, fair.
welcome to SonarFeed episode 297. Who is Dave Clark? It's like Who is John Galt, but completely different and not at all a literary reference. I just got a cringe from the Peanut Gallery, and I'm... Actually, that's a good one. Literary. It's just that the Wi-Fi is not great out here on the patio. Sorry, Dave.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah. So since Dave's been here, Wi-Fi the same, drinks bigger. Spätzle is it better?
That's just how I remember it. I love it.
Just how you remember. That's good.
Sounders champions.
Yeah.
Again. That's about right.
Yeah.
So we'll take it.
Aside from that, I don't think anything's really happened.
So
So that's it. That's the show.
Yeah.
There we go. We're done, right?
let's ask Dave some tough questions. No. Anyway, we should probably introduce ourselves. So to the my far left, your far right.
Oh, far right. Oh, geez. Mickey Turner, Turner SU on the Twitters.
Hi. Who are you?
How's
Oh.
it going?
That's you.
Oh, that's the toss now.
Yeah.
It's just hi.
You're in the middle.
Man, I'm Dave Clark at Better Than on Twitter.
What about other social media platforms?
Also at Better Than, I believe, on all of them.
Cool. And I'm Tom Bureau, a.k.a. I don't know, whatever account I'm using today.
It changes. Do you own Bureau.tm yet?
I don't.
But you will by the end of the night now.
Don't.
The way your face just...
Yeah, that's a very cryptic response.
Yeah. Give it like 10 minutes. If you see me typing feverishly, that's what I'm buying.
Mickey and Dave.
So
talk.
been a while since we've had Dave Clark here on the show in one way, shape, or form. How long are we at? 8?
Probably 11 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming up
Give
on
or
a
take a
year, real quick.
it's been a
What have
long
you been up
time.
to?
Let's see. I started working for soccer teams professionally. So that happened.
As opposed to
Running Sounder at Heart.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I think Mickey and I worked there for like a week at the same time, roughly.
Best week of my life.
Yeah. So I've been mostly working for Tacoma Defiance, not just as a broadcaster, but every bit of written content, essentially, there. Was social media for Rain FC last year. And then this year, I'm expanding my Defiance role and dipping back into baseball, something I haven't done for about 20 years. So just touching on baseball once in a while, which has been a lot of fun to reawaken the bat and ball game.
I think expanding my Defiance role is like a good, like, bio blurb. You
I don't
could
even want to
that.
say role, just expanding my Defiance.
Even better.
I think. What are you-
Capital D Defiance.
What are you doing? I'm expanding my Defiance.
We also have some dog beasts.
Yeah,
in the
they're
audience
kind of
tonight.
cool.
They're
They're hungry.
They really like encased meats, as far as what I can see from here. So do I. So we're in, good audience. Anyway,
Working out.
look how great the stream is going on my screen right there.
I see John. I see
I don't know who that is.
not Van Prime.
It's probably someone we know with a new Twitter account in the chat. So, anyway, so you're getting your soccer and your baseball on now. How, just like, let's dig in for a second. How fulfilling is that compared to what you had been doing in the past, which you've been involved in internet communities and things like that for quite some time in various capacities, whether they paid you to do it or not. You've sort of blown that out and gone in a pretty significant different direction, or
Well,
a more formal direction is maybe a better way to say it.
yeah, I think that there's a lot of fun and opportunity, particularly with a team like Tacoma Defiance that, just started January 30th of 2019, and didn't, I had to establish an identity that connected to Tacoma. And so it's been fun to work through that and to learn about that city and the South Sound. That's been part of what I do. Is I just write cultural stuff. Like I interview writers. I was talking before the show how I interviewed a professional wrestler that owns a comic book shop recently. That should be up this week.
And that's pretty normal, right?
Yeah, most pro wrestlers own a comic book shop, I guess. And like part of what that is just talking about like fandom and how that's changed, because in the 80s and the 90s, comic books and wrestling and D&D and soccer were all things that you were a geek or a nerd, and now they're things, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, they're just culture. They're not like subculture or anything like that. They just are. So interviews like that, interviewed the guys that are behind 1111, and the Valley, and Peaks and Pints. They're just like chronic entrepreneurs. They're like, we're bored, we're gonna start a new restaurant. But like the restaurants they do are like, it's $6 for a burger and a Rainier beer tall boy at happy hour. Like it's that kind of like family.
We should all be at that place.
Yeah.
We're not at the Berliner.
Yeah, everything, so it's a lot of fun. 1111, everything's under $10, I think, from their sandwich menu. Yeah, stuff like that. Taking the
people stuff.
people
culture. Yeah.
I mean, if you read Sound or Heart, which most people that watch this thing do, it's not just a soccer blog, and so that's part of why they were intrigued by me. Is that I'm not just a soccer writer. Like it's about how sports is a method to connect with people, and so this is just a new way that I connect with people.
You talked about you're getting a little bit more involved in the baseball side of things. What's that going to look like coming up?
Just before the holiday, she overloaded it again.
I hate you.
I love it.
Ridiculous.
We launched a weekly newsletter that you can get at the letter R Tacoma, WER Tacoma.com. Sign up for my newsletter so that I get to keep doing it. But basically, it's a newsletter that we cover Rainiers, Mariners, Major League Baseball, Defiance, Sounders, MLS, and then culture in and around Tacoma, and then just some events that are going on that have nothing to do with any of the sports teams. It's just, this is cool stuff in Tacoma. Let's enjoy it. So in that, I've been writing some of that, and I'll do some features on players and things for the Game Day magazines.
How does one subscribe?
There is a get this directly to your inbox little message thing, like form.
Like in the upper corner of the website?
At the bottom of the website, or if you click on the story that says This Week in Cheney Stadium.
Okay.
That's the weekly newsletter. It exists both on the web and as an email. Some people prefer things on the websites. Some people prefer emails. So do both.
Cool.
And how is it going to change your role with the Defiance, if at all?
If anything, my role with Defiance is expanding. Not, and it was just because last year I was 50-50 Rain FC and Defiance. Now I'm 100% with the Tacoma group. So I have more bandwidth. So what am I going to do with that? The newsletter is one of those things. More content, a little more video stuff will start popping up that's Defiance related. Got to remember to speak into the microphone, even when I'm looking at Mickey. Yeah, so more about the players. One of the things that we discovered is that people really like the soccer element, so we're writing more of that.
Like more analysis.
Player features, what it means for their career to be at Tacoma with the opportunity to earn an MLS Cup ring, like 3 of our players did. Like 3 players that got rings that sang and marched in the parade, started their year with Tacoma Defiance and ended their year as champions. So let's make that 4 players next year and do the same damn thing.
Yeah, and that sounds great because soccer is kind of unique in sports landscape where you can get to the first team at a very young age.
Yeah.
Witnessed by, what happened, Danny Leva and Alfonso Campo Chavez winning contracts last year. it seems like there would be more of an appetite to see what those players, how they're doing as they come up through the Defiance. So it definitely seems like there would be an appetite to get a little bit more in depth into that, because obviously the Sounders fan base is very active and wants to know about these guys and how they're doing.
Yeah, and Garth's pushed a lot to drive that age down. Like when we, if I were to graph the average age of the players between S2 and Defiance over the years, I want to say that year one of S2 was like 23 or 24. Last year, even with the loaned players like Ramon Torres and Harry Shipp and Will Bruin and Brian Meredith, the average age was 19.1. This year, it's going to be higher. It's going to be the first time in the Garth Lagerwey era that the average age has bumped up. And not just because they're older, because remember we talked about Torres and Bruin, and those guys are not going to be there. But they signed Colin Fernandez. We signed. I still sometimes stumble about that. Colin Fernandez, who was a midfielder for St. Louis and Phoenix Rising last year, and then Phoenix Rising all of the year before that. He's a 22-year-old, but he's already in his sixth professional year because he signed at 17 with the Chicago Fire as a homegrown player. He brought up recently that his locker room mates were guys like Harry Shipp and Jovan Jones. So that was part of the appeal, was because guys he knows are on the first team. And then Taylor Mueller is 31 and holds the USL record for minutes played.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they have a couple of those types of players, because you saw in the, I want to say probably 2018 is my guess, is when they had no real older leadership on the team, save I think David Estrada.
That was the David Estrada year? Yeah.
Basically, save him, it would have been questionable if they would have won a game, because he scored basically all of their goals. And, I think after the season basically acknowledged that, the team was too young, too inexperienced, and tried to, I think, make some adjustments in that. Now they're never going to go back to what they had in 2015, their first year, when they were signing a bunch of 25.
It was all guys that didn't get drafted, basically, that they wanted to see who turned out. And who knows, maybe, there are a couple draftees still around, and maybe one or two of them do get the Defiance contract, like last year. Alex Burkholz, for example, who had a solid season, and is on trial, I want to say, with Galaxy 2 right now. Which would be odd, because that's essentially the reverse Justin Dillon, who was a former Galaxy 2 player who got his second chance with Defiance, turned it into an MLS deal. So Burkholz is trying that now, and that's a good move. Like, to be honest, like the draft, we've seen it reduce in importance. We've all written about it. We've all talked about it. So to give those guys an opportunity at a USL team and see how it shakes out, some of them will wind up earning that MLS deal, and that's good. And some of them wind up on independent USL teams making decent money in good cities all around the United States. I mean, there are 80-some professional teams now in the U.S.,
crazy.
Which is a lot different than when I was growing up.
Or even 5 years ago when the USL was starting out.
Yeah.
So what would you say, and we're obviously just in the beginning stages of the Defiance getting together, what would you say is kind of their goal for this year? Garth, I think 2 years ago, thought they were going to make the playoffs. That obviously didn't work. Last year, he was a little bit more circumspect about what he was wanting as far as game performance. Obviously, they want to see them develop. That's their number one goal. But I'm sure they want to see them improve on the field as far as the results are concerned, like they did at the end of last year. So what's kind of your general thought on what is reasonable to expect and kind of a high-end
I think
guess?
it is reasonable to think that they can compete for a playoff spot. They went 7-7-3 in the final 17. That's the final half of a year to go 7-7-3. Once they kind of locked down who were kind of the 13 key players, that's what occurred. Undefeated in the final 5 matches of the year, won the final 2 at Cheney Stadium. I think that's a reasonable target, particularly when you're talking about bringing back so many players. And
so like 500, competing for the bottom end of the playoffs.
Yeah, like if that 7-7-3 with the, I think it was a -3 goal differential, if that had worked out over the whole season, they would have missed the playoffs by a point. And a lot of for the people that are going there for this dedicated to soccer, to have a team at that level is very different than a team that what happened during the first half of the season with 2 wins over 17 games.
Yeah, I'm obviously the fan base down there, to the extent it exists at this point, what they understand what the team is, but I think they also pay good money to see competent performances. I guess, for lack of a better word.
I think the people particularly who went to like the Las Vegas game, that was a 4-1 win. Vegas wound up getting 3 guys sent off because
they went insane.
5-1 over San Antonio FC. There were plenty of good things to point out.
Yeah.
But it took. I mean, the fastest goal in USL history, Justin Dillon, scored in 9.17 seconds. I think there were signs that things were good. I think that some of what happened last year was there were multiple stretches with 4+ games on the road in a row, and that's rough. This year we have one of those. Heck, this year we start with 4 at home in March. So you want a team that's young yet experienced and can build off of last year. Those March games are kind of a unique opportunity because they get that comfort at home, while a lot of USL rosters are kind of going to be shaking out at that time, because that's those first couple weeks of March are the same time when a bunch of MLS guys have gotten cut and are trying to find new teams where they didn't really practice with them. So there's some opportunity there. I think Azrael Gonzalez talked about winning 4 at home, which, I mean, if they do that, I will say they will pass the 500 mark. That might be a little bit too aggressive, but if they go undefeated, winning, like 2-0-2, that's going to be a nice sign for things to come, because it'll mean these players that are practicing with the first team through most of training are playing very well, like Hope Yao, Sam Rogers, Josh Atencio, Danny Robles, Marlon Vargas, Azrael Gonzalez. I think those are the ones that. I think I got all the ones that went to SoCal there. Yeah. Like, if those guys are performing at like 2-0-2 level to start the season, it's a bright future.
Yeah. Do you see any of those guys getting signed? Schmetzer said in his interview on Saturday that he was impressed with Atencio in particular. He was the first one he noted. And he also pointed out Hope Yao and one other player whose name's escaping me.
I think it was Big Sam Rogers.
Yeah, you kind of referenced him, but he was kind of at the end of it, and end of that list. It was Hope Atencio was the number one that he noticed, and as well as Hope Yao.
I think with Atencio, it's interesting because he is still just 18, just turned 18, if my memory serves correctly, on the 31st. Yeah. So barely 18 now. And he kind of slipped between 2 positions last year.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what is his ideal position?
His ideal position is Gustav Svensson. Yeah. So, playing 2 different roles. Maybe Jordi Delem is a more reasonable example, but if you can get a Jordi Delem level talent through your own system, no international slot, minimum salary, that's going to be great. But yeah, he watches, like, I talked to Josh 2 days after MLS Cup, and he said that on his rewatch, less than a day after MLS Cup, he was already rewatching it. The rewatch was basically just watching Gustav Svensson play. And even last year, he said that was a big theme for him. Whether Gustav was playing center back or defensive mid, that's who he wanted to play like. Now, Josh might actually have a slightly better, like, his passing skill should wind up better than Gustav's. Gustav's a rather conservative passer, and Atencio used to be in the attacking band. So he kind of looks to break lines with his passes a bit more than Gustav does. He doesn't have the experience to do that frequently now. What keeps Josh away from being a center back permanently is his stand-up tackling and getting the body directly on a guy. You need more of that as a center back. You can go to ground a little bit as a defensive midfielder. Yeah. But you generally don't want center backs doing that.
Don't do that.
Yes, the Jimmy Traore the school of tackling.
No. Okay, got it. Fine, but please no.
So we've received a number of questions in the last player signings. We'll come back to the jokes that have now started to pour.
Of course.
But yeah, no hoodie tonight. So lick it. We hate to disappoint you. Dave will not be trying to.
I can do a jacket for you later, though, if that helps.
So you're talking about signings, just player movement and players going up, down, whatever. Bregel asked if it made sense for Tacoma to sign Alex Roldan, and would he be blocking minutes from a developing player?
Just to give an update before you answer, Alex is still with the team. He was out there at training today. It seems to me that they're trying him at right back to see if he can spell Leardom, and that's probably where he's going to make the team if that experiment works. So,
yeah, I think what's interesting is the organization has several right backs in a row now, several players competing for that backup right back position that are essentially attacking midfielders, whether it was Henry Wingo at the start of last year, Anthony Burke-Gilroy down with Tacoma Defiance last season, shifted from a right wing and a cam to becoming a right back, and he looked very good there. He has rejoined Defiance. He joined a little bit late just because he's an international player. I actually don't think it would be good for Alex Roldan to be with Defiance because, one, Anthony Burke-Gilroy is trying to figure out if he's going to be the right back at Defiance. And if you need a backup right back in your first team, he's got to be available. It's probably better for that slightly older player to be the one that is sitting there available in case of injury, rather than one that you're like, well, let's see what he can do in a year to see if he's a first teamer. And it's just kind of that way. You want a guy that's 25 plus, basically, to hit that flex role.
Yeah, he shouldn't be going down to Defiance to get minutes.
He'll play there once in a while,
yes.
certainly, but that's not I don't want to see him as a Defiance signing. I want to see him as an MLS signing that plays games for both teams.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense, but like Aaron Kovar was a better player than Alex Roldan, in my opinion, of the times I've seen him on the field. And Aaron Kovar no longer plays soccer professionally.
Oh.
I'm really, honestly, I'm struggling with his position on the roster. Like,
Roldan. Well, keep in mind he has no position on the roster at this point.
At this moment,
Yeah.
But even like last season, I didn't really understand it. Like, could you really not find anybody?
Well,
he was
especially in the middle,
off budget, minimum salary.
But like
who
that
else
that
really
just says everything
but
that's been critical about Garth and filling rosters, like that falls.
there will
into
always
that.
be an
there always-
off-budget, no-salary
Yeah.
guy that you pick up in the draft or as a free
It
agent.
feels like this is a.
Jordy
Yeah.
Delem
We
used
like
to be one
having
of them.
someone's brother on the team play.
Knew who used to be an off-budget minimum salary guy that didn't take up a roster slot. Jordy Delem was. Like, you're always going to have those guys.
Both of
Yeah.
them are 5x
Well,
the player that Alex Roldan is.
There's going to be a worse player on the field on a team, no matter how good
No
the
matter
team
what,
is. So.
for sure. But this feels like let's be sentimental, and we made this draft move from someone who went to Seattle U, and.
He had a really good career at Seattle U. Like,
Okay,
he was a
well.
valid draft pick for any team in the
Does
league.
that justify where we are right now?
Well, where he is right now is a trialist that's
Yeah.
trying to earn a contract at a position he's never played before. So it's a.
Yeah, let's keep in mind he may not. Yeah, he may not get signed by the team.
I think what you have from Alex Roldan is a guy with good vision. His understanding of the game is really good, and he has a strong effort. His work ethic is. When you know who his family is, it makes it pretty obvious.
Yeah.
He's highly coachable, and those kinds of things are important to have on a squad. Those people who just try harder than most, and there are times when that's necessary for locker room. There's times when that's necessary on the field. Honestly, if
baseball, where like that's a thing.
Well, but that's a thing in soccer too. Like you have to fill out a training squad roster. They have 31 roster slots
that they don't ever fill. But it feels like the sentimental choice at this point versus they could do better even pulling a player up from Tacoma.
But this isn't preventing that because they still have 3 or 4 spots open
Yeah.
for guys from
This is
from
you don't
Defiance.
need to be
and
the Alan Dershowitz of Alex Roldan.
well, no, I haven't promoted child rape.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway.
and it's taking a turn.
Like, that's
no,
not-
what I would say,
like,
yeah, I do agree with Dave in that this isn't holding up anybody from doing
Totally.
anything.
Because there's always room for another player.
Yeah, and they would cut him if someone from the Defiance showed well and they decided to sign Anthony Burke-Gilroy or Atencio. Not that they play the same position, but just if there was someone on the Defiance that they thought was worth signing to a first-team contract, then Alex Roldan would not be on the team most likely, unless he proves to be a capable backup at right back. So I think just for last year, who were they going to sign that Alex was holding a spot from on the
I
Defiance?
think even at the end of last year, there were still roster spots open for
Yeah.
players like
There
Alex
are
Roldan.
always
Like,
roster spots open on Sounders.
yeah. I mean, part of that is because I don't think MLS teams actually need to have 31 players on the roster.
Yeah.
There's not many do. So
Yeah, I would say again, on the list of concerns, that's pretty low for me at this point, just because of the circumstances. Primarily, him not having won a first-team contract at this point, and we haven't seen what he can do at right back. Fortunately, there is a scrimmage on Wednesday, which we'll be able to see a little bit of what he can do, because I'm sure he'll get at least some run out in that game at right back, because they're going to want to see what he can do against a quality USL side. Sacramento was certainly a solid team at that level, and they've certainly given the Sounders troubles in the past. So we'll see what he can do as a right back. It's tough to say at this point because the Sounders, for the first time in forever, haven't been in a preseason tournament where we've been able to watch games and stream them and at least check out real highlights and big chunks of games. There's just been none of that to this point this year. So, and they haven't played many games. They've only played 2 friendlies so far, with this one coming up being the 3rd. So it's tough to assess where he's at just watching him in training, because everyone looks fine in training for the most part.
and they don't really run 11v11.
Yeah.
Like maybe once a month we'll see an 11v11.
Yeah. And we won't even see it that this year because they're going to be gone for 5 out of 7 preseason weeks. So it's just, this has been a unique preseason in that we just haven't been able to see a whole lot of stuff to report on as far as their performance is concerned. So, yeah, well, at least we'll get some look at him this Wednesday and see if he's up to the task at right back. And if not, they're going to have to go out and find one, because I do think if he's passable, they'll probably sign him as a right back backup, because as Dave said, he can flex down to Tacoma, fill in there on occasion, and then he can be like the 18th or 19th player on the Sounders bench.
Like you're really talking about the 4th fullback too, because there are 2 left backs already on the roster.
Mhm.
Christian Roldan can do it in an
Yeah.
emergency situation.
He's actually a pretty good right back,
yeah,
in my opinion.
I think when you're going to see an Alex Roldan in the 18 is due to injuries and whatnot.
And call-ups, like, in it,
yeah.
Exactly. So, we still got time. There's still a couple of 3 weeks before CCL, and about a month before the season starts. So, we'll see what he can do. But we'll get an answer to that at some point, because, again, my hunch is that they will probably sign him, mainly because I don't think there aren't really other options out there who would fill that slot of a supplemental player who doesn't hit the cap, who can play.
I guess I just
at
feel
the
like
MLS
that's
level.
super lazy. Like you're a quote global club end quote.
Yeah,
Well,
but that
yeah,
search
play the
would
part.
always be for a $55,000 a year player.
You're
Zach Scott was making $55,000 a year, and
well, he was making that when the minimum was 12.5.
Yeah.
It was later than that.
Yeah, he was.
He never made the minimum.
Yeah, he always made a little bit less, which is weird. I think it was his situation was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Either
The
way,
Sounders are in a really good place if you're concerned about who the minimum salary guys are. Which is
yeah, it just-
probably a good indicator of what's happened
again,
over the past week
as
with
the-
the Sounders.
as the
Because
person for,
2
like-
weeks ago, you wouldn't have been worried about the minimum salary guys. You would have been worried about
Center back.
starters.
Yeah.
I was concerned about center backs actually.
Yeah.
Still, maybe a little.
I
concerned about
think
center
it's
backs.
fair to. Well, we're expecting.
As the person who
yeah.
feels like the Sounders go for the sentimental signing and have brought players back multiple times because they happen to be known quantities in this world of global soccer, I'm pretty consistent in that mentality.
Yeah, I mean it's
Thanks,
a fair point to bring up. They do bring back a fair. They have brought back a decent amount of players that used to play for the team. They have had varying degrees of success in their returns.
We can bridge on from this, though.
Yeah.
Bregel's got other questions. Asks if USL caps the number of internationals. Just asking if they're at 3 or 4.
It
It's actually
does-
interesting, though. Does Puerto Rico count?
Puerto Rico doesn't count as
It
international.
shouldn't,
They're
right?
Americans.
But I know that.
Yeah.
But like half of the voting electorate in this country doesn't know that. So
That's true.
Let's just be clear.
No, but it doesn't. It doesn't matter. What's interesting is Bregel is referencing Alec Diaz, who switched from U.S. youth national team call-ups to getting a senior Puerto Rican national team.
Oh, I did not
call-up
know that
last year.
actually.
Got 4 minutes with the Puerto Rican senior national team in a friendly before the Nations League last fall. Pretty good move for him. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. So he's not an international. Let me scroll through the 3 internationals right now. I'm going to try to say it correctly without looking at the name, which is going to be really hard. Abdoulaye Sissoko, center back.
Center back, yeah.
19 years old, played for San Diego 1904 in a league called the NISA or NISA. If you listen to the Soccer ESQ podcast, you can learn a lot more about that league.
Thanks for the plug.
Wow. Did you just hand Dave money?
Yeah, it's more PayPal. You got to be up to speed on.
And
these
then
things.
the 2 Australians, Jesse Daly and Anthony Burke-Gilroy, to my memory says that is 5 international slots in the USL level, but it might be 6. They're not in danger of hitting that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what those guys can do at the youth level. I mean, Sissoko is so young and raw. They've kind of cycled through some of those international center backs over the last couple of years.
Modu Endow last year.
Yeah, so it's tough to say, oh, this guy's really promising. We could see him up in the first team in a couple of years, mainly because they're usually one and done with those guys. They either see something in them or they don't. Nuhu being one of the prime examples of someone they pulled from deep in the in their scouting network, and who worked out. And obviously, you're not going to hit on all of those guys, but it's just tough to see or say, oh yeah, this guy looks really good. I expect him to get a first team contract, but we'll see how he does this year.
It'll be interesting because the primary center backs are going to be Taylor Mueller, Sam Rogers, and Josh Atencio.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to be your 3 that get minutes at that role. So
It's actually, speaking of which, we could probably segue a little bit into Blake Malone, who signed with Orange County SC a couple of days ago, who was a center back that was in the Sounders Academy, a fairly, I would say, touted prospect. Mm-hmm. Went out to North Carolina for school and has now signed with Orange County. I've heard some stuff about why that happened, but I'm curious to hear your take on that move because it's interesting.
I think what the key to this is if he plays really well for Orange County, the Sounders still have his MLS rights. And if you're going to focus on Sam Rogers and Josh Atencio, who, Sam was getting U20 call-ups before Blake was. And if Sam plays back at that level, there won't be room for Blake Malone. Malone, I think, has 1 US U20 call. Josh Atencio has USU 17 calls. Didn't make the World Cup roster, but was the cut just prior to that. So they're kind of stocked. Like, if Blake Malone's going to be the fourth best center back on a team, probably doesn't leave North Carolina for that. But going to Orange County is a good opportunity. It's a pretty solid team. Darwin Jones is down there and has found success. So there's a former Sounder down there. They just also signed. They got on loan 3 guys from Rangers, the club in Glasgow, as well. So they're kind of changing what they do, and they do have another the U20 goalkeeper is their goalkeeper. The Cervantes is a US U20 goalkeeper. So it's an interesting thing down there for Orange County. I hope Blake does really well. He's getting paid to play soccer, so that's a great thing. And if he does really well, he'll be in Rave Green again.
Yeah, this is happening a little bit more, which I think is good in that draftees and academy players are starting to look to the USL to sign contracts, even though they have MLS quote unquote parent teams or academies that they come out of. Number one, it gives more soccer jobs to U.S. players, and number two, if they perform, as you say, they can get MLS contracts, and potentially those MLS teams will have to pay at least some fees, transfer fees, to those USL teams that spend time and money developing the players. So
Atlanta United, no, it was Adam John, so it wasn't necessarily somebody that needed to be developed, but Atlanta United had to pay $100,000 to Phoenix Rising for the player. And they say it's not part of the deal, but they also did a year-long no-recall loan of one of their youth players to Phoenix Rising as well, which is interesting because Atlanta United does have a 2 team, with the creative name of Atlanta United 2. That's 2 players now that they've loaned to USL squads for full seasons.
Yeah, Andrew Carlton went to Indy.
Yeah, Indy 11 for Andrew Carlton, and I can't remember the player's name that went to Phoenix Rising.
Yeah.
But they gave $100,000 in a player for Adam John, the former MLS talent you might remember from the Crew or the San Jose Earthquakes.
Yeah, the Earthquakes.
It's a valid thing, and I think you're gonna see it a little more. It's kind of funny. Jeff Reuter from The Athletic.
Yeah, he comes from Minnesota.
Had just written a story earlier in the off season about how MLS teams aren't paying USL sides for transfer fees, and there were like 5 moves the very next week.
That was pretty funny.
Kind of worked out funny, and it's good to see for those USL sides because there are 35 teams out there.
They're spending money developing players, so it's good to see them now be able to realize a little bit of a return on that investment. It's not huge money at this point. It probably won't be huge money unless you get a phenom that comes through. But I think it's a good thing, and so hopefully we'll see more of it, coming out here in the next few years, and you'll see more college players and certain academy players who aren't in their MLS teams plans start to go to USL sides and
sign directly rather than enter the draft.
Or even if they get drafted, they'll go sign for teams like the Sounders currently have with one of their players going to, I think, it's either Vegas or Rio Grande Valley. That's an interesting thing to kind of look out for going down the line as we,
Heck, even last year, Atlanta United signed to United 2. A goalkeeper that I think FC Dallas had drafted.
Yeah, it's kind of there's some weird stuff, and that's just because USL is now starting to pay some competitive wages, and so you can go sit on an MLS bench for $50,000 or get a USL contract for $60,000 and be essentially guaranteed lots of minutes.
You're going to be playing a lot more, even if in most cases it'll be less than the MLS minimum.
Yeah, but 45 and getting 30 games.
45 in Reno.
Yeah.
Versus
the 50 in Seattle is not.
So there's some cost of living issues.
Slight cost of living variance there.
It's interesting to see the league develop enough that they go back again when we were talking about Zach Scott when he was a USL Sounder. He was also a coach. It's just different now.
Yeah.
We've got dozens and dozens of professional teams
And
that
more
are-
on the way.
Yeah, and it just keeps growing. It's fun to see the opportunities for so many people in professional soccer.
So we have a bunch more questions that have floated through.
Excellent.
Andy in the chat asked about Colin Fernandez,
Chi-
whether he was an international or not.
he is not born and raised in Chicago.
Okay.
Was a Fire homegrown player. Still follows what's going on with the Fire because that's where he was born and raised and was the first team that signed him. But played for FC Tulsa, Phoenix Rising, St. Louis, and now for Defiance. He's a number 8, kind of a hard tackling number 8. So expect him to play in some ways similar stylistically to Christian.
And then anything about Alec Barkhold's departure opinion?
I mean, I think
You can have one.
of the Defiance players that weren't brought back, he was the one that played the most minutes and had the most starts. He was a strong contributor.
He
to
looked pretty
Tacoma.
good to me in most parts.
And I think that's his situation is similar to the Blake Malone situation. Is they didn't see him to be above Sam or Josh
Yeah.
in the future signing, and then it comes down to do you want a veteran that's been in the league 1 year and is 24? Or do you want a veteran who has 18,000 competitive minutes, who's from the area? So they went with Taylor Mueller, I think, for that veteran. I'm making a little assumption there, and I fully expect Alex to get a contract, whether it's with LA Galaxy 2, Orange County, San Diego Loyal. I expect him to be with one of the 3 LA-based teams by the end of the month.
We can bridge into completely different things. There's a CBA question. We should hold on that. Let's kind of.
Well, there's not a whole lot to
let's stick-
add on that.
It's on hold.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So
they have
that's
until the 7th to.
It's kind of where we're
Yeah.
at. Punch in the chat is just asking about, brings up the new designated player, but just saying there's some other re-signings or not re-signings and other things for the big club. Anything else you're hearing since we've last spoken on this particular topic?
Well, there's going to be an announcement this week. You probably saw Nico Moreno's
Yes.
tweet. That lines up with everything I'm hearing. That, we should have an announcement maybe tomorrow, potentially Wednesday. I would say before Wednesday or before.
So we're in the physical visa, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah, he won't join because, the visa process is kind of funky, but they'll have the announcement.
Wait, in the United States?
Yes, I know.
Well,
Shocking.
particularly in this case, because they're going to Mexico almost immediately
Yes.
afterwards,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you'd have to get another visa in an hour, basically.
Yeah.
So it's going to get complicated for him, but
Yeah, well, I mean, they'll just say his signing is obviously contingent upon receiving the visa. The same thing that happened to the New England guy,
Yeah.
who didn't have his visa granted and they
Additional
terminated his
Kamara.
contract. Yeah, so but I think there will be an announcement this week, and I would say possibly tomorrow, at least by Wednesday, and that would be a new center back signing it by all accounts, although that has not been confirmed by anybody.
We
this is
center
the
backs.
guy that's 6 foot forever and built like a pro wrestler.
Yes, that's correct. Yamil, I believe is his first name. I should know
Andrade?
this. Yeah, Andrade. Thank you. That's obviously great news because they were short a center back and still may be short a center back. If Sam Rogers does not, I think Sam Rogers is the one that they would be looking to sign. Atencio, has looked better, but Rogers obviously feels a need. I think more unless you think Atencio can do the Svensson backup center back thing. That's an interesting battle for sure. As far as which one of those two is more likely to get signed.
Even with Shane O'Neill, isn't the first team center back position, assuming the rumor with Andrade, you got Arriaga,
Yep.
and then you've got O'Neill.
Yep. And then Andrade, and that's only 3. You
So
need
that's
another center
3.
back. You
So
need another.
You
Yes.
probably need 2.
Potentially.
You've got to have at least
Well,
4.
Yes.
With both,
I think
both
Andrade
Gustav-
starts over Shane O'Neill, no?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
like-
No, but my point is that they'll have
need
3
an-
under contract. They
Yes.
need at least one more, even counting for Svensson and Delem's ability to drop
Yes.
back.
Yes.
They'll need at
An
least 4
actual center back.
and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
even 5.
Yeah, depending on if they decide to change formations, they do like to run 3 center backs at a time on occasion.
Well, they kind of fake it though.
Yeah, fair.
It's usually just Gustav.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, at the end of games, they would run Torres out there with
Well,
Cam and Ariaga.
that was as a forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's also true.
Snarfed. Let's not do that live on
Yeah, so
the internet.
yeah, again on that point, but you're not going to sign a high-priced 4th center back.
oh no, your 4th and 5th guys. Like last year, it was Saad
Johnny
Abdul
Cam-
Salam and Johnny
Cam.
Football.
Yeah, and both of those guys were close to the minimum senior salaries or supplementals. I can't remember which.
I think they were both on supplemental.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Either way, yeah,
the
they
cap
need-
hit was minimal.
Yeah, so they need another one, and so I think they're clearly going to give Rodgers every opportunity to win that 4th job. I would say that's where they would pencil him in if he shows what enough to garner a contract. I think you will recall Spencer's comments at the beginning of the season, of the
Like,
preseason.
it's now or never.
Fish or cut bait, essentially.
It's funny. Like Sam Rogers is 20.
Yes, and a
and-
center back.
and a center back who are notorious late bloomers, and because he's been in the org under a professional contract for so long, and even though he missed essentially a full season due to injury
Yeah.
over the past 2 years, we're all just bored with the Sam Rogers hype already.
Yeah, and he left
as fans.
Yeah,
are.
yeah. He left in the middle of the season to go over to Belgium, Standard Liège, for a trial, and I think part of that had to do with him wanting to advance his professional career and win the first team contract, but the team didn't think he was ready for it, and so I think there were probably some hurt feelings.
He did an off-season training stint over in England, I believe, as well.
Okay.
So what will happen first? Light rail in Ballard or Ballard High's Sam Rogers on Sounders?
Well, since one of those will never exist,
So 2035.
that's the light rail.
Yes.
It'll get canceled by then. We'll have another
So
vote.
We're on center backs, and
yeah.
he's asking about Kim not being a possibility anymore.
What's up with Kim?
All right, so
it money?
Yeah, it's money. The Sounders offered him a deal right after the season ended. He was out of contract, so he didn't. It wasn't a thing where they declined his option and offered him a new deal, whatever. He was just out of contract. They offered him a new deal. Clearly, he did not accept it, and the Sounders have said as much. Garth held a conference call, I want to say the day before preseason opened, and basically said they had essentially not heard from him and assumed that he had quote-unquote other options. There were reports.
Does Garth know that, like, if you don't answer, if someone just sends you to D&D, you can just call it again and it rings through on your cell phone?
Garth
Is
knows
that-
D&D, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good reference. Yeah, actually, you should drink after that. Anyway.
And well, at this point, if they're signing Andrade, that he's going to be a TAM signing. You can't have
Right.
4 TAM center backs.
Just 3.
I mean, you can.
we
but
did it
don't
last
do
year.
that.
Yes. Well, who were the 4?
No, we had 3,
Yeah.
and that would be the same if they brought Kim back. Shane O'Neill's like
yeah, I guess
100
O'Neill's.
grand.
So they'd have
So
Ariaga,
Andrade, Kim.
Kim.
That's not really different than Ariaga, Torres, Kim. Ariaga was a DP at the end of the year.
Ariaga, Andrade, Kim. But again, you're spreading your TAM dollars. I doubt they think they have that many. But
Does anyone even know, though?
no,
Like,
of course.
Nobody knows how much TAM's available.
No.
No one in MLS knows right now. It's a
It's actual fake money.
But last year you said they had 3 TAM center backs. Yeah, they had Kim, Torres, and Ariaga. And
the like max salary Chad Marshall.
yeah,
For the
he
fir-
was, yeah, he was
And
gone.
then he hit the books.
He
the
hit
whole
the books
time.
the whole time. Yeah. So I think that's just they're probably looking to do something elsewhere with those dollars, probably during the summer, because they're obviously maxed out on DPs for this year now. And so that's just my feeling is that they have another
Just keep
place.
signing them though. Like
Yes.
there's no contract. Just do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
The LA Galaxy
just
theorem
go-
of
just keep going.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think the bottom line is he doesn't want to come back for what they're offering. And it's possible what they're offering is low enough that it would not impact their books significantly. I think he made around $600,000 last year, which is not terribly over the TAM threshold. So it's possible they offered him $550, which they could in theory buy down to the minimum of $150. But that's obviously a pay cut for him, and he's probably not looking for a pay cut at this point. And depending on the years that they were offering, there were reports he had offers over in China or the Middle East. But he is, as far as those negotiations, to the extent they exist, there's been nothing said whatsoever. And it sounds like the Sounders have moved on. So maybe he calls them up in a week and he has explored all of his other options and he comes back to the Sounders. I'm sure they would be happy to take him back, but it would be on their terms.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
No, I would love to have Kim back, but I don't know if it works with what's currently happening in Soundersland.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have a new center back who potentially that none of us have seen live play or play live,
Right.
or nor to see how he will interact with Arriaga. Maybe that pairing is just dynamite lights out, and then you still have Shane O'Neill and potentially Sam Rogers, and you're perfectly satisfied with your center back core. But again, if they can get him back on a favorable deal, that'd be great. But again, does Kim want to spend his time on the bench making 40 or 50% of what he was making before? It seems to be unlikely.
Stop looking at what my searches are over here, Clark. There's actually really great questions coming in. Like, I wanted to kind of flip over to something else, but Justin asks about compensation from Miami when they signed Roman Torres. Given his
How much
years
do we
of
think he's going to
service.
make?
No, they were wondering about like
Is
no
it totally a
draft pick
free? Like
John
John points out, was that actually a free or?
They declined his They declined his option. He certainly had an option for 2020. He went through the waiver draft or the re-entry draft, one of those two, wasn't selected, and then it was first come, first serve. At which point the Sounders did not have his
So there's no rights at that
Yeah,
point.
they didn't have any
Okay.
rights to him
Got
at
it.
that point.
That makes sense.
it's basically backdoor free agency.
Yes, essentially, yeah. After you run through 6 or 7 hoops, you are a free agent.
So, got a lot of good tweets here. Before we get to Pino and the women's national team, who only won 6-0 today versus Costa Rica, what's a new player you're most excited about? I'd say big team Defiance. Like, who's of interest to you? I would even say like young player. Either of you, like, who are you excited to see?
I really liked what Hopio did last year. He was pretty dynamic, especially towards the end of the year. He's been very impressive in practice. So I don't know if that's enough to win him a first-team contract. Dave, you would probably speak more to this. Where you see his best position, is it definitely on the wing?
He's definitely a winger. He can play as a forward, but I don't know that he can play as a forward at the MLS level. When people ask me for his like style of play, he's a better dribbling Lamar
Yeah.
Nagel.
Yeah.
And,
Likes to take people on.
and Lamar had 2 seasons in MLS where he scored 9 goals. So if you can get that from a homegrown player that's starting, Shannon's only 21 now.
Yeah.
And in his this is his 4th professional year, his 5th professional season, and you can already get a potential 3-4 kind of goals from him.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good
Yeah.
it's a pretty good signing, and it'd be a pretty good move for him. And I think you'd see him in kind of that like Justin Dillon after he signed,
Yeah.
where
He's with Defiance for most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say this is probably where
I'd be stoked if Shannon got that opportunity.
Yeah, I think he's probably earned it at this point. It's just a matter of they have this potential spots, but they do have kind of a log jam of not his type of player, but just kind of those bench winger types. You got Chip, you got Wana as well. So you wonder, is there room for him to even
he's
to really get any minutes?
stylistically different,
Yeah.
and like of the guys on a first team roster, the one that he's most similar to is probably Jordan. But he's not really it's not that he has game changing speed. It's just that, like Jordan Morris, he's just going to go at goal.
Yeah.
And they don't really have that from Juana. They don't have that from Chip or Will Bruin. So there's an opportunity for that style, and I think that you kind of need that. Like, you're going to carry 3 attacking players in your 18 on your bench, maybe 4. So there's an opportunity there. Buana and Chip share a lot of playing style, just in that they're both tight dribblers and short passers. So there's an opportunity there. I'm intrigued. He's played with the first team lineup in both the earlier preseason games. Has one of the 3 assists so far on the preseason. So if you're looking for production and what they're pointing to, everything points to this January and February. Things are going well for Shannon.
Yeah, he's definitely performed well from everything I've seen, and obviously the coaching staff singled him out as one of the players that had done well. So, I hope he gets an opportunity. Hopefully he'll get some time with the first team in the scrimmage on Wednesday.
Are you going to be there?
I will be there.
So how would we follow you if you were there?
Well, Turner ESQ on the Twitters. I'm sure the Sounders will be covering it as well.
Just press.
Yeah, just press.
Okay.
But there'll be interviews after the game. It's closed door, so there's no streaming, unfortunately.
I mean, you could stream.
Yes, I could. I may not be asked to stay. So.
Andy has asked a couple times about keepers at Defiance.
I'll defer to you on that one for sure.
Well, Marceta is on trial with the first team, so that's an interesting situation. Every year they have 4 keepers with the first team for preseason, because that's just how you get enough guys to work during during preseason exercises in particular, because there are times when they run like 2 sets of 7-on-7, so you need 4 keepers. I wouldn't read it much into his being with Defiance. I really think that the backup keeper for Defiance this year is going to be a rotating group of the academy guys, and that's just kind of what it is. What's going to be interesting is it going to be Stefan Cleveland or Trey Muse that earns that first team like backup role, and how that sorts out now that there's not a Brian Meredith. It's going to be 2 much younger guys trying to figure out who's the backup first team keeper and who's going to get the majority of starts with Tacoma.
Siege wants to know if you are a hard candy guy.
I'm actually a soft candy guy. I love cinnamon gummy bears, or the cinnamon bears, gummy bears, Sour Patch Kids, that kind of stuff. That's my candy. The cheap knockoff stuff that always says like 2 for $2, but they're $1.89 if you buy only 1, so you always buy 2. That
You're in that jam. Okay. Just checking. You know, you got hard-hitting questions here on SonarFeed.
What do you got?
I mean, there's probably like 30 more questions in the chat. Casey! Sailor Diet, please. I don't know if there's any more. Oh, what's your favorite sour candy?
Oh, I think that was the Sour Patch Kid. I mean, that's kind of boring, but lemon drops
It'll be
are
okay.
hard, and I don't want hard candies.
Apparently, New Who's leaked the kit.
Oh boy.
Let's go to the gram, because
Well,
that's where.
I mean, we're gonna know exactly in about 48 hours. Actually, about 36 hours. because the official release is on Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday's a busy day.
Yeah. The Sounders aren't doing any type of event, unfortunately.
With a video of my what? Oh.
Yeah.
This is too meta.
Yeah, I'm not sure I care all that much at this point. These, they're not doing an event. They're just basically deferring to what MLS is doing in New York. So,
And the back collar won't be as cool as the last one.
Of course not.
Yeah.
The back collar was cool.
It was. Don't we have a Doug flag this year?
What do you have? There's something on there. That was the. Well, I guess I could take a look at the leak, and we
They haven't
will
changed
know.
that title page, by the way.
In a minute. Yeah.
I'm just trying to watch this video.
It's loading. We should probably talk about something
Please hold.
while we wait for loading.
Have you ever
Oh
done-
wait, new
There
player.
it is.
Mickey gave his as Shannon. I want to give 2 answers for new player.
It does look like highlighters. Cool. Anyway. Sorry.
New player is, let's see, for first team. I guess we only have 1.5 right now, right?
On the Sounders.
We
Yeah.
have 1.5 new players.
Yeah, new players.
'Cause he-
He has not been announced
yeah.
yet.
So I guess João Paulo.
Yeah.
I'm really excited by like that hard tackling. I mean, hard tackling number 8. I've already said this, right? But I'm into hard tackling number 8s.
Yeah, he's looked very good in training so far. He practiced on Saturday. That was his first day. Did the interview and then was out there today. So he'll be fit for CCL clearly. Yeah, he's got some quality on the ball. He's a good passer. He's a quick thinker. So he's kind of anticipating movements and where players are going to be and sending good passes. So yeah, it seems to be everything that they were looking for at that position, and they got a. It sounds like they got a good deal. I guess we didn't really talk about his arrival officially. They got a good deal apparently based on the structure of the transaction. He's basically a DP for this year, so they cannot sign another DP under any circumstances unless the CBA goes insane.
7 DPs.
Yes, unless if we get a couple more DPs. And they will have.
If Union has the player that I think they have already posted that they have signed essentially from Sounders, I'm super okay with whatever he costs right now. Because like this whole weird Sacchini.
Oh,
is
yes,
on
yes.
Union, I'm like, I don't care what Sounders do at this point. The fact that that's what happened in
Yeah.
some weird 2 to 3 way
Three-
team
yeah.
transaction.
Definitely
I'm
some
good with it.
multi-dimensional
It's okay.
chess going
Yeah.
on here. Yeah, and so we won't
Good
be.
job, Garth.
Yes, he won't be a DP or has the potential not to be a DP next year, and they're not actually even obligated to him next year. Although unless he has just a completely terrible year, and he's not the player that they expected, then I would expect that they'll sign him. But in theory, they could cut bait after this year with him if it doesn't work out, and they'll be out the transfer fee or the loan fee and his salary for this year. But long term, they would be just fine. So, and then based on what it sounds like, he'll be able to be bought down next year if they want to bring in an even higher profile DP. So that's some really good work by Garth. Under the circumstances, and he gets him somebody that they can use for CCL. Christian's gonna play on the wing. That's just that's all but confirmed at this point. So it'll be Gustav and Zhao in the center of the park at the defensive mid positions, and yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how they look. I mean, I think Christian, for my money, he's a very decent right winger. He brings a kind of a unique skill set there. So I think I have no problem with it. I know a lot of people want to see that TAM pacing winger or
I
DP
don't know
pacing
if
winger. But
Jordan
I think
Christian wingers are quite as, I don't know, fancy fun as tiny Spaniard
yeah.
Jordan wingers. It's a slight slight variance there.
Oh well, that is 100% true. Oh my God,
If you like citrus, thanks.
good Lord.
Are you coming down with scurvy?
No, I'm definitely not getting scurvy.
Yes, it
It's
isn't
literally
accurate.
that one of the bartenders is sitting at the
One
bar.
of the one of the bartenders
and
is
really likes
insane.
fruit.
Yeah.
And by fruit, I mean killing me with fruit. Anyway,
No, I agree with you. Roldan is not Victor. Morris.
obviously.
And Morris is.
Am
I'm
I
not even
complaining about it?
Yeah,
no. It's gonna be super fun to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they'll. You have Nico and Raul, up the spine essentially. So you're gonna
That
be.
sounds terrible.
Yes, I think you'll be just fine. And Christian, again, he's very effective when he plays on the wing. So I don't really, while he may not be Victor as far as kind of technical quality, and I think that's where you're definitely losing something. Dribbling ability, just his ability to work in tight spaces and things like that.
So, wait, but Christian has played what 99.7% of all available minutes. Victor played 40% of all available minutes. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be fine. I know. I know people were wanting the the high profile fancy replacement for Victor, but you got to pick and choose.
I don't know, like
where you're
nasty
gonna play.
CDM
Yeah.
and a center back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the team is
team's-
basically set.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you could see the team pressing higher up too, as well. Like you're gonna, like
Yeah.
Christian's higher up, they're going to try to win the ball further up, and so if you
Yeah.
have 2 less touches you need to take to get the ball into threatening spaces, that's gonna be handy.
The jokes are happening in the chat. Adam asked, how do you actually say his name?
Zhao.
Zhao.
Is it actually Zhao?
You know how I know it's actually Zhao?
Because half of Brazil is named Zhao. We heard that.
Also true, but Zhao Paulo, there are like 17 of them.
And people
Yeah.
dug through that.
But I watched Below Deck, and
Don't do that.
Zhao was one of the deckhands.
So, Adam asks, what does Zhao bring that Christian doesn't? And Hope says, Botafogo fans. And the
that is
one-liners have
literally
started.
true. I think Zhao's certainly a better passer than Christian by probably a good distance. So that's something you're going to get.
Rachel Sparks is going to beat the shit out of you.
Like, why?
Why you got to trash talk Christian?
Oh,
Well, the other thing is like,
it's
dude,
like saying that Jordan's faster than Christian. It is one of those things.
But seriously, the passing.
Yeah, the passing
point.
is.
and
Okay,
didn't
yes.
dude win like 3.6 tackles a game?
Yeah, he was a good tackler. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And he's a good free kick taker.
wasn't that I think Ozzy only had 1 year with more
Like, that's
Yeah.
a
at
concern.
I don't
that
know if he-
level.
yeah.
Now, does that translate from Brazil's
Yeah, that's-
Serie A?
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that translate from the Brasileiro?
Yeah. To here?
I don't think it's
I
called
did good on that.
Serie
Yeah.
A.
It has an A in it,
It does. Yeah.
but it's not Italian. How does that translate? Like, who knows?
We just don't know. So
We'll
you
find
gotta
out.
See, yeah,
like,
you gotta
if
see
he's
him
a
out
better
there.
tackler and a better passer than Roldan, we've had that's a lot.
That's a pretty significant
Because that's a really good
statement.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see him on Wednesday, and we'll be able to make some assessments about how he looks, and then they'll go down to Mexico and probably have a couple more closed door scrimmages that no one will get to see, and then they'll be ready for Honduras at the at the middle of the month, which is it's like 2 weeks away essentially, which is crazy. So yeah, we'll see. It's just you're right. It's tough to make that to see how it translates. Again, most of us have not seen him play a full game. We've only seen highlights with bad EDM music.
Dude, YouTube sizzle reels of players we've never heard of actually worked out really well if you looked at the one for the clinical finisher that currently plays forward for Sounders, he's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We're
If
kind of in
there's
a
a sizzle reel of slide tackles we
Yes.
can all watch. I am here for it.
Yeah, we have to wait and see. So let's wait and see. But he looks the part in training, but that doesn't always translate, as we know.
Dave's contemplating.
I think I said
Something.
my bid on JP.
How's your Spätzle?
It was really good. I'm gonna have more of it later.
I've never eaten Spätzle with a spoon.
I kind of
do-
help.
I have as
actually
well.
ever.
Yeah, I think I actually have as well.
It works. It works here.
Huh. Interesting.
To answer the question in the chat, where does Roldan move? He's right wing, right mid, however you want to phrase it, depending on their formation.
He might be a right mid, while Jordan's a left wing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you want to set it up on your EA FIFA,
We're gonna get
2020.
some weird 4-1.
4-1-4-1, or I mean, that actually did look like a formation today, kind of in training. But again, they were playing short field, so you can't really take it away from the formation. But it was kind of interesting.
So it's roughly 10 minutes before the end of the show.
Cool.
What else should we talk about, Dave? You've done this before. We should just make up new SonarFeed questions and just ask them to Dave on the spot.
Sure.
Did you buy your Girl Scout cookies from Lickett's children yet?
I am on
The
a
whole
no
order
Girl
online
Scout
thing is
cookie.
baffling to me.
I think the last Girl Scout cookies I got were gifted to me from Hunch Punch. And my wife found them, and we then gifted them to some. No, then I bought. This was over a year ago. He gifted them to me, and then they wound up on the YachtCon giveaway
Oh
table.
my gosh!
Wow.
I'm sorry, Hunch Punch, you're listening, and that's because we were in the keto mode at the time, so
How'd that work out for you?
it worked really well for me. But I quit. My wife's still doing it, so all my meals at home that I prepare are that way.
That's why you're eating Spätzle.
That's why. But yeah, that I've been trying to not go with like the over the top sugar,
Probably smart.
but yeah.
So how excited are you for a year that is soccer and baseball?
I'm
Professionally.
really stoked for this year. I think it's fun. You know, I joined while the season had already started, so I didn't get to I wasn't really involved with the direction of like a campaign, to borrow terminology that you know so well about, like the marketing and that kind of thing. And this year I'm part of that, and it's really exciting. I think it's fun to be the soccer voice in that room so frequently. And I think what's the happiest part for me, and it was one of the things that I was worried about the most, was the challenge of replacing kind of the Sounder art community that I've been part of. And the city of Tacoma has made that easy, because people in Tacoma will say hello to you and talk to you when you're a stranger. And that's different than Seattle. So it's been cool to, like, a couple times a week I just go out to a place and I'm like, I'm Dave. I write at We Are Tacoma, and I'd like to interview you. And they're like, yeah, cool, no trouble. What do you want to talk about? And I do it. I've talked to the poet laureate. I've talked to a guy who writes magical realism meets horror. I'm going to ride along on a tugboat next week. And it's like, oh, you're a soccer writer. Why do you do all this stuff for? And it's like, a lot of what we do is we tell the stories of Tacoma. I was telling people before we were on the air that the video series, This Is Our City, with my boss, Casey Catherwood, and AJ Garcia, who is the Rainiers version of Dave, plus a little bit more, because he has to write all their press releases too. They're doing like a fitness series, and they did sword fighting. That just got filmed, and like You can see little clips of it on the Rainiers video stuff, but
That's like a good bad idea.
like it either worked really well
That
or
you voted
not at
for.
all. I was the reason it was sword
the
fighting, not
nominator.
karate, was me. Yeah, it's fun. Like I was mentioning, I talked to a professional
You
wrestler.
try to kill your colleagues right there. Yeah.
It happens. We've got Jack the Bear. He's going to be back. That's going to be fun. We have an adult drinking mascot. Like, he shows up in the bars around the city.
So like,
He walks around with a bottle of Coors Light in the stadium.
it's just an
I'm not
idiot.
gonna say anything.
He's a bear.
again, the fact that the house is not Rainier friendly is still staggering to me. Years later. But you have a mascot that walks around with beer, so that's cool.
Yeah, like,
Actually,
it started as a research project and it became a literal mascot. And he's a mascot that talks, which is unusual in the mascot world. And he's a mascot that drinks, which is even more unusual in the mascot world.
That's fair. I know you can't get into too many trade secrets, but are there anything's fun planned as far as promotions or things like that with the Rainiers?
Oh,
or
in
with-
the wheelhouse.
Like nights,
yeah.
nights
Um,
and things. You have a
with the
calendar in your
Defiance as
little
well.
notebook right there.
Oh, I've got a few of them memorized, actually. So we have Dogs of Defiance, which is our first Sunday game in March. So we've got the 6th, the 11th, and then like a week and a half later, Dogs of Defiance. So dogs will be at the at the pitch, hanging out in your seats with you. It's a fun little experience. I'm going to try to bring Aslan down, but I'll need a caretaker because he'll whine a lot. We have what else is some fun stuff that's coming up? June 17th is the Day of Defiance. It's a day when we celebrate Tacoma's history. It's against Timbers 2. It's going to be interesting this year because Timbers 2 moved out to Hillsboro. They're not playing in Merlot or Geldwin or Geldwin?
Whatever they're called.
Wow,
Whatever they
that's a
call
flashback to the glass house.
Providence Park.
Providence Park. There we go. We have military and first responders night. I learned a lot last year. I think on the Rainiers side, we're going to have a flyover for their military night. We'll see what we do for Defiance. That was like my highlight last year. Was I was the ground control for the helicopter that did the flyover for the rain game on military and first responders night, and they flew over. They were about this helicopter. It was the rescue version of the Black Hawk helicopter, the ones that the Coast Guard uses, and it was under 200 feet up. Like if there was a guy hitting a baseball, like if he was hitting a home run, he would have hit the helicopter. It was that low. And it just flew right over, and I'm sitting there I'm like, go, 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 and like seconds later, and I'm like, oh my, it was a nice, being a former Army guy, being able to call in a helicopter like that was rocking.
You didn't even have to jump out of it.
More importantly,
Thankfully.
are they going to drop cash from the helicopter?
I
onto
don't
the
think we have.
fans?
I mean, it's a wild and fun time, but I think that works for Vegas. I think the Vegas Lights have a lot of fun with what they're doing.
They have the lock on like, what's the dumbest thing we can do
Yes.
this
But I think we do a lot of things that like connect to Tacoma, and I think it's been fun seeing what we do. I think the number of promos like the Rainiers are doing. There's a Grateful Dead night. That's a lot of fun. The July 3rd is basically the 4th of July. The Rainiers never play on the 4th. They turn the 3rd of July off and into the 4th of July, and then take the 4th off. It's a tradition that goes back 60 years, so why change it, right?
Dude, AAA, AA baseball has some stuff that you just can't recreate,
Yeah, and like
nationally.
we have some just like amazing creative talent that helps with like our graphics and our art. The renewal piece for the Rainiers was a comic book, like fully independently illustrated, laid out, and written by 3 of my teammates, and they made a comic book as
Pretty
a
random.
like this is what's amazing about Rainiers baseball. On the Defiance side, it was a magazine about kind of the history of Tacoma and its history of Defiance. The guy who wrote that was me. I had to read that a lot. The layout, and it had illustration as well as photos. Pretty cool. Just we do wacky stuff. That I've seen the retail scarf. I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it, but the retail scarf this year, just it's different, and I don't think I haven't seen any team that's done a scarf like that before. I haven't seen any supporters group that's done a scarf like it before.
It's 19 feet long.
I do wish that our scarves were like 2 feet longer, so you could.
Dude, there was that Bada scarf from a handful of years
Yeah.
ago. So I actually miss mine because it's tied to the Cascadia Cup right now, and it's sitting in Atlantic Crossing. And I'm like, why did I choose that one? Because it's my favorite one because it's just long enough that you can tie
actually
it differently.
Yeah. That's handy, particularly on a night like tonight where it's under 40 degrees.
I mean, it's like a summer weight scarf, so
It
doesn't really
provides
do
no
anything.
assistance whatsoever.
you know,
but
there,
it looks cool.
yeah.
having participated in making several scarves for sale, seeing the ECS scarves, getting people to come up with a concept that I've never seen before I was like, how are we going to do that? And they're like, well, we talked to them. This is how. And I'm like, oh, excellent. So hopefully we'll have that out soon. I can't really say more about it than that, but it's it's pretty awesome.
Cool thing.
We do like the clothing that we do is pretty cool. Black on Black Defiance is my favorite sweatshirt now. Like, look on the edge. You can't really see it in this light, probably, but the edge is the hint of green.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, I'll show you afterwards, but the manufacturing tag, all the tags are Defiance. They don't have a manufacturer.
Nice.
So that's just kind of cool. We do some fun stuff with that, with the merch. I've enjoyed just being, like, I pitch ideas that, like, normal sports teams be like, you can't write like that. And they're like, it's Casey Catherwood, so he's like, just make it good.
Also, your team's called Defiance. So, bring it.
There's a certain amount
Yeah,
of leeway.
I can't remember what the there was some like international thing covering like soccer, and they're like, starting up soon is the USL. Let's go team by team, but we're not going to cover the MLS2 teams because most of them are boring. And then in the end, they're like, except for Tacoma Defiance, which has the best crest in all of global soccer. And I'm like, okay, one, you were like a third of the league you weren't going to talk about because they're kind of like we are. And then on the other hand, they're like, except that logo with that giant octopus sucking the ship down into the water. I'm like, okay. And then there's like, we get to have fun with we have 3 different logos essentially. There's the fist exploding out of the ocean, which I think is a great one. And then the kind of rave green shield that says TAC on it, just to reconnect with the whole Seattle metro area. I have fun.
So we may not see you on the show at least for a hot minute. Do you have a Sounders prediction for the season?
They will finish in the top 4 in the West. That's really tough. That's all they've ever done.
Wow.
They will be a semifinalist or better for at least 2 trophies this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, they're in line for 4. Although one they are already a finalist for in the Campy MLS
Well, I'm not
Cup.
going to count that one.
Yeah.
But no, Shield, MLS Cup, Open Cup, Champions League. I would
Champions
say
League,
those are the 4.
Oh yeah, fair.
And I would say that a semifinalist or better in at least 2
Two
of
of
them.
them. That would
That's
be
pretty
a
cool because
fun
they don't
season.
really care about the supporter shield, so just like take that out
Well, they finished 4th in the Supporter Shield last year.
without even trying.
Yes, that's
So, like last year, I would have been right because they won one and finished 4th in the
There you
other. So, I mean, it's Brian Schmetzer. You're never going to give up on him.
He wants all of the hardware. So, yes.
They're in a position to challenge on all those fronts, I think, as long as they get this other signing over the line. And if 1 or 2 of their kids comes good, then they'll have the depth to go further. But we can talk about previews
Like,
later
we'll get
on.
there.
Yeah.
What's really like, how good is Brian Schmetzer? there are kids
out of
that
3.
he's signing to like first team contracts that he has only missed the playoffs one time in their life. Because he's been a head coach or first assistant from 2002 to the present.
Yeah.
And he missed the playoffs in 2006. That was it.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
It's a good run.
Yeah.
Danny Leva's not that young, right? No. They need to sign an even younger guy.
Yeah,
Austin Brummett. He's 14.
Yeah.
He's the youngest goal scorer in the history of the USL. And he is still a Sounders Academy player, not even on a pro contract yet.
Yeah, about to say, he's...
What do you think about the fact that Alphonso Davies is playing left back? It smacks of Bale playing outside back.
I mean,
for Tottenham.
We shouldn't be surprised at really fast young dudes
really
that get
good.
forward a lot.
Yeah. But he's good at it.
Well, yeah, he's
sometimes
better
those
than
players are
DeAndre
like
was, but
mediocre, decent. Like he's actually good at outside back.
well, what he adds that like DeAndre didn't. Like he's a better passer. He's a better shooter. Like DeAndre could dribble like that and could run
Smoke
even
people.
faster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Davies adds on like 2 more world-class skills.
Yeah.
Like DeAndre Yedlin had world-class speed and pretty good defense. And then, in many ways similar to Nuhu. Nuhu has world-class speed and really good defense.
Yeah.
But, Davies takes that and...
blows it out of the water.
Yeah, like, I think, he's a talent. Even Yedlin and Morris, in ways, are talents that aren't developed. Those are talents that are born. And, they can be refined and be better, but that's not what an academy program's about. That's really, Garth keeps saying this over and over again. A strong academy program is not you, found this diamond and polished him. A strong academy is you collected a whole lot of semi-precious stones and put them into jewelry and made them look great. And I think we're getting very close to that. It's funny for an academy that has produced some 13 homegrown players to this point and something like 25 professional players. Oh, wait. I might be 10 low on that. It might be 35 professional players, counting the Defiance kids,
It's a lot.
the homegrown players, and then the guys that sign with other squads. Like Jordan Schweitzer, who is he's with Reno 1868 now. He's with Phoenix Rising.
Yeah, he was in Colorado.
He was in Colorado Switchbacks. He's now in Phoenix Rising, former homegrown player. We talked about Darwin Jones. Those aren't the ones. Ryan Herman played professionally for a little while. We talked about Blake Malone earlier in the show. There's almost 24 kids like that. Malcolm Frago went on to play. Gustav Brandt was a Swedish player that they brought in pre-Garth, spent a year at the academy, and then played for a second division Swedish team. You have more than a dozen guys that signed with other professional teams. You've got about a dozen that have signed with Defiance right now, and then you've got the 13 that signed homegrown deals. Imagine, almost all, only about a third of those are post-Garth. We're really going to get into the era where that's exploding.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see that edge right now where stuff like Blake Malone happens, where there are so many guys that are ready for professional contracts that they can't sign them all.
That sounds terrible.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
And then you do that and you layer it on with, they understand championships because 3 UDON trophies, GA Cup Premier, GA Cup Championship Division trophies, and then obviously all the MLS Cups, Open Cups, and all that kind of thing. I know Defiance has struggled, particularly in the first half of last year, but last year was actually better than 2018 and tied on points for 2017. There's a danger that players get used to losing, but they're not there yet because, again, they won the GA Cup 2 years in a row at 2 different levels. They've won the UDON. A bunch of these guys won.
Same players.
These same players, they've won at lower levels, and they were all at the MLS Cup final with 70,000 people in the stadium with them. So they know, like, talking to those guys after MLS Cup, they're like, oh, we got to do some stuff now. Like,
Yeah.
if they want to be, they want to be there. They want to
Yeah.
be in their hometown stadium with 70,000. It's going to take them doing more.
Sounds super awesome. So karaoke's gonna happen.
Oh.
We should probably sign off in a minute. What song are you singing at karaoke tonight? You cannot sing it, but you just have to tell people you're gonna sing something and they'll believe you.
I'm going to, I believe it's DSTHM, Don't Stay Home This Time. I didn't do it right. Don't Stay Home This Time by 311.
Nice. You forgot to make your 311 shout. What's happening on March 11th?
Defiance have a game on Wednesday, 311, and I will guarantee at least one 311 song plays in stadium during the between gates open and
you know
kickoff.
people.
I'm like,
Ish.
I'm working that night, Casey, so there better be a 311 song because it's 311.
So you're gonna sing
I'm gonna
"Let
bet.
It Go" from the Frozen soundtrack?
No, Don't Stay Home This Time, or All Mixed Up. I could probably actually pull off All Mixed Up.
Okay.
My
Someone go inside.
my peak 311 day was era was when I was in the Army, and my roommate at the time was in the 311th Military Intelligence Battalion when the song All Mixed Up, Don't Know What to Do came out, and so it became their unofficial theme song because everything was mixed up.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, we've got some time before predictions and whatnot for CCL and beyond.
I assume we'll be back next week.
We should probably have a show next week.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason not to. Maybe.
I won't be here.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just
Well, we can
show
talk
up.
about hopefully new signings and the
We'll actually
scrimmage.
just talk about Dave Clark.
Yeah. Well, I was going to do that anyway. But
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Dave.
My pleasure. It was good to be back. I'll see you in a year.
Thanks, Mickey.
Pleasure as always.
Anything else we need to talk about tonight?
Eh.
ECS season kickoff party.
Oh,
Saturday night, 6 p.m., the Pharmacy, which is the bar below Temple Billiards.
I'm going to plug YachtCon,
25th?
February
Yeah, Tuesday.
25th. My good friends at Nos Audios and Sounder at Heart are doing the 5th annual YachtCon now. And there's going to be some fun stuff there.
The
They haven't
shirts
announced any
should
guests.
just
so-
say like 70.
I would say there's a certain general manager who's likely to
Oh
be
yeah,
in
they
attendance.
announced that basically.
Yes.
Like we've gone over the years, team owners, head coaches, general managers. It's players. Obviously, Will Bruin will be there because he's part of the
Yes,
podcast
yes,
network
he-
now.
So
But
it'll be a good time.
yeah, is that confirmed? Sammy? Oh, a mascot. Maybe that's me in a
It's
Jack the
actually
Bear
funnier when you
outfit.
say a mascot will be there.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
I know one of the gifts is going to be Bragle won it last year. Is a Summit Club seats
Yeah.
to Tacoma Defiance, a pre-match tour, meet and greet with the team, and then hanging out in the broadcast booth for as long as you want. He did it for the whole game. It was pretty
That
cool.
sounds like a
experience.
good place to bring your own liquor. Just sneak it in.
Well, you're Summit Club, so you don't need to bring liquor. You actually have inclusive
But like in the
beer, wine,
broadcast
soda.
booth,
I won't care. Like, it's me and Andrew Harvey.
be like that person at the Iowa caucuses tonight. Drop your bottle of wine in the gym, and then have Karen judge you
Yeah.
from
So-
the line.
Damn Karen.
Yeah, we're gonna do that with. We'll have at least one of those packages there, and it's fun. It's raising money for a great cause. It's one that's close to a lot of us.
So 3 weeks from tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? So coming soon. Get your tickets.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
go to
get your
Sounder
tickets,
Heart, Brown Paper
go to
Tickets.
Sounder at Heart. It's a brown paper tickets link. You can find it Sounder at Heart, Nos Audios on Twitter, Sounder at Heart on Twitter, all social media. Follow Mickey. You can find it. Follow Jeremiah, Lickett, Campo, all those guys.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. See you soon. See you in 2021. Have a good night from Berliner Pub. Thanks.
Man.